Ever since its introduction, Pokémon has always been associated with handheld gaming. From the original Game Boy to the DS and now the Nintendo Switch, Pokémon has always been a portable franchise. And alongside the development of technology, Nintendo has decided to expand Pokémon's reach to the device that we all carry with us on a daily basis, the Game Boy Advance e-reader. Oh shit, they also make games for the box that plays Subway Surfers and orders my food on Uber Eats. Nintendo apps seem a lot more common nowadays with things like Mario Kart Tour, Animal Crossing Pocket Camp and Pikmin Bloom. While some franchises get 1 or 2 apps at most, Pokémon has consistently gotten mobile games and apps since the mid-2010s. I thought it would be interesting to revisit them and see if any of the games are actually worth playing. But since it's mobile games I'm talking about, I need to find a way to keep everyone engaged.
Peter, what are you doing? Crack?
Before getting to the games, I just want to preface that there are some games that I'm not going to cover because they're exclusive to certain parts of the world like Pokemon Jukebox, Dancing Pokemon Band and Pokemon Pass. They barely count as apps or games like Pokemon Photo Booth, or I couldn't find the APK file anywhere online like Pokemon Playhouse. But other than those exceptions, time to answer the question I get whenever I'm around my younger cousin. The first Pokemon mobile app was Pokemon TV, released in February 2013. Making its initial debut in November 2010 as a website, Pokemon TV was a free service you could use to watch the Pokemon anime. It was basically Pokemon Netflix, but worse. Due to the licensing rights of some movies, such as Pokemon Heroes and Destiny Deoxys, they were never made available on the app. On top of this, the lineup of episodes and series was rotated out on a regular basis, monthly when the app first released, and then weekly with later updates. If you wanted to watch one episode in particular, chances are you were shit out of luck, with the series having 1,224 episodes before the start of Horizons. It seems pretty unlikely that your favourite episode would ever be found in the random selection that week. Pokemon TV was shut down in 2024, so even if you still have the app installed now, you're unable to access any content. I'm surprised they haven't capitalised on people's nostalgia and made an actually competent streaming service with a subscription model. In summation, Pokemon TV was fine, nothing special, and it's a shame that it's been taken offline. Camp Pokemon was released in 2014 as a way to introduce newcomers to the series by teaching them the basics. The minigames were intended to help players understand game mechanics like type matchups and Pokemon evolution. It never went into more in-depth aspects of the game, which does make sense considering it was aimed at young children. If you try to explain the concept of a choice band or EV training to a child, they'll just start yelling stranger danger. They just can't comprehend the more advanced mechanics of the games. The app was updated following the release of the Alola games to include Pokemon from the 7th generation. But unfortunately, the game's been taken off of app stores and it can't be played by downloading the APK file. Finally, a game I can actually play. Pokemon Shuffle is pretty much an updated version of Pokemon Troze, or Link if you're in Europe. Initially released for the 3DS, Shuffle is a free-to-play game with microtransactions available to purchase currency and stamina to continue the game. It was a fun game to boot up if you just had a few minutes to kill and had your 3DS on hand. After coming back to Shuffle on mobile to make this video, I have to say, Pokemon Shuffle's actually really fun. I finally understand how middle-aged women are able to get to level 4000 of Candy Crush without putting their heads through a window. The aim of Shuffle is to line up your Pokemon in a row of 3 or more to damage your opponent. You have to beat them within a certain number of moves, and the more moves you have remaining at the end, the better your chances of catching the Pokemon. I always find it really funny when your combo keeps going even after you've won.
He's already dead!
Every so often you come across a boss fight to get a Mega Stone to use in future battles. So for those of you who say that Pokemon forgot about Mega Evolution after Oras, clearly you're a fake fan. But yeah, Pokemon Shuffle is surprisingly fun for what it is, and you really don't need to pay for any of the currency because they give you quite a lot after defeating a boss. 5 out of 10, I'm gonna keep playing this when I'm waiting in a line or something. Pokemon Duel was an app based on the Pokemon trading figure game in which players would battle using Pokemon figures, each with their own attributes and stats. It's pretty much the Pokemon equivalent of a game of chess. Like its inspiration, Duel had the player use Pokemon figures to battle against CPU opponents or other players in real time. That's pretty much all I can say about the gameplay since it was taken offline in 2019 and you can't play it even with the app installed. It turns out that Duel had a full-on story in which the player would participate in a tournament on an island against other characters. The journey would see the player battle against the island's 9 hotel owners and receive an emblem for winning. After collecting all 9 emblems, the player would earn the right to face the current champion for ownership of Jewel Tower. The characters in the game that were revealed all had really cool designs that I genuinely expect to see in a mainline game. It's a real shame because it's clear that a lot of effort went into Pokemon Duel. All the character designs are great and the plot was what I'd expect from a game trying to change the formula like Sun and Moon. Hopefully the designs and plot can be brought back in a future game, or Duel could just be ported to the Switch as a free-to-play title. It's kind of impossible to talk about Pokemon games on mobile without bringing up the elephant in the room. 2016 was a turning point for a lot of things. It confirmed that we were in the darkest timeline when Harambe the gorilla was shot and killed at Cincinnati Zoo, Batman v Superman was released, and we had both the US presidential election and Pokemon Go's global takeover happening simultaneously, which led to this absolute gem.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go, but I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
Developed by Niantic, Pokemon Go is a game that allows people to catch Pokemon in the real world using AR technology and the player's real world location. Notable landmarks in your local area will likely be marked with a structure like a Pokestop that you can spin to get items, or a gym you can battle at and capture for your chosen team. Turf Wars, sponsored by the Pokemon Company. All my real ones chose Valor. Sorry, I don't make the rules. Pokemon Go briefly took over the world when it first came out, and it's still incredibly popular to this day. It's so popular that the first mainline games on the Switch were designed as a pipeline to bring the fans of Go into the more traditional games. I'm from the UK.
I've just woke up in a fucking steaming mood, yeah? Because I live in a shithole!
And here in the Empire, we had to wait an extra week to get the game officially, while people in the US and Australia were already filling their Pokedexes. I was so desperate to play it that I installed the app from an American APK file, and it actually worked. I think that is the most popular I ever was in secondary school. Everyone knew I was into Pokemon. I had that classic no bitches look about me. So I had random classmates I'd never spoken to in my life asking me about shit like type matchups and how to get Ultra Balls. There was this one spot in town where 3 Pokestops and a gym were arranged in a perfect circuit so you could spin them all in less than a minute. This meant that there were about 30 people there every day during the school holidays, and it was genuinely the most time I've ever spent outdoors in my life. Since its launch, Pokemon Go has expanded its features and gameplay through the addition of later generations of Pokemon, trading, raid battles, community days, and even Team Rocket. I do have a few issues with the game, like needing to pay to increase the size of your bag, Niantic reversing the pandemic changes which negatively impacted players with reduced mobility, and some Pokemon being exclusive to different parts of the world. Oh, you want a Kangaskhan? Have fun going to fucking Australia!
What's up guys, it's me, Professor Cunt.
Pokemon Go is probably the most influential mobile game ever released, and it's going to be difficult for anything to come anywhere close to replicating it. Harry Potter and Monster Hunter can try as hard as they want, but I don't think they're going to cause any stampedes anytime soon. 8 out of 10. Easily the biggest mobile game of all time, and it's the singular reason that my uncle knows what a Porygon is. I never thought we'd get a spin-off game centered around the most useless Pokemon of all time. And we still haven't. Sunkern Jump isn't a thing, so I'll have to settle for Magikarp Jump instead. If you're mad because Sunkern is your favourite Pokemon, stop lying to yourself.
I don't really want this.
You begin the game by catching a Magikarp to compete against other Magikarp trainers in battles to see whose fish can jump the highest. You jump higher by increasing your jump power through feeding your carp berries and training them. After a training session, you'll sometimes encounter someone who will help you in your journey, like getting a nugget to spend on berries, or an old man will offer to massage your Magikarp. Listen, if any old man ever comes up to you and asks if he can massage your fish, do not go with him. When it's time to battle, all you can do is hope that your hard work pays off and that your Magikarp shows the results of its training. At the end of each League of Trainers, it's time to retire your Magikarp as they've outlived their usefulness. After which you can immediately replace it with a new one, and each new generation of Magikarp gets a percentage boost to the results of their training. Your new Magikarp can come with a different pattern, so you're not always looking at the same fish. And naturally, this also comes with a pattern dex for you to fill out, something I think joins trying to get every Spinder pattern in the deepest circle of hell. Over time you can add decorations to your pond, and sometimes your retired Magikarps can be seen in the background trying to relive their glory days. You can also find helper Pokemon like Pikachu and Manaphy in and around your pond to give you periodic bonuses. Magikarp Jump is a pretty shallow game with some microtransactions, but the in-app purchases are the furthest thing from necessary, and the game is a really funny concept that ended up as a cute way to kill a couple of minutes. 5 out of 10. I can't wait for the Feebas Jump expansion. Do you ever wonder what it would look like if you put a Pikachu in a car compactor that crushes them into tiny little cubes? Well, thanks to Pokemon Quest, we don't need to wonder, because in 2018, Game Freak decided to pump out this absolute monstrosity. The first thing you'll likely notice about Quest is the art style. The game looks like you corrupted your Minecraft world by trying to install a sketchy Pokemon texture pack. The aim of the game is to explore Tumblecube Island and befriend the Pokemon living there so they can help you out on your mission. The gameplay of Quest is easily the most mind-numbing out of the actual games that I've looked at for this video. Your Pokemon automatically run around the stage and attack enemies. You don't actually control their movement. The only input you ever have is telling your Pokemon to use one of its 2 available moves. And once a move's cooldown is over, you know what you have to do. That's it. Every so often there's a boss fight at the end of a level, but it takes absolutely no thought to win. Just tap the button when it lights up. After levels you're rewarded with experience points, stones you can use to power up your Pokemon, and ingredients you can use to make stew. The stew takes time to cook and will be ready when you complete a certain number of expeditions. Or if you're an impatient fuck, you can spend PM tickets to speed it up. Funnily enough, you can't actually spend money to get more PM tickets. The microtransactions of Quest focus on other in-game items like statues, decorations, and cooking pot upgrades. Pokemon Quest really isn't worth your time. It's a game that pretty much plays itself and the art style is genuinely abhorrent. And even if you do want to play it, you can't get the definitive experience without downloading the Chinese version of the game, as it's the only one with the expanded features like a PvP mode. 2 out of 10, I will never boot this game up again. Pokemon Rumble Rush was basically a Pokemon Rumble game for mobile devices. It came out in 2019 and was taken offline within a year. It can no longer be played, and that's probably for the best because the Pokemon Rumble series sucks dicks. Next game. I've never been someone who gets really invested in gacha games other than Dragon Ball Z Dokkan Battle. Honestly, you could probably sell me anything if it has a picture of Goku on it. But it turns out that in 2019, Pokemon brought out their own gacha game in the form of Pokemon Masters. The initial reveal of the game was done with an animated trailer featuring characters and Pokemon from across the series' history, including gym leaders, champions, evil team members, and even previous protagonists like Brendan and Rosa. In Masters, you take part in triple battles against a team of 3 trainers. But you don't do this alone, as you have teammates called Sync Pairs. Sync Pairs are notable trainers from the series with their own partner Pokemon, for example Misty and Starmie, and Steven and Metagross. These pairs are summoned by spending gems, which you can either earn by playing the game, or, once again, by spending actual money. Masters is regularly updated with new Sync Pairs and promotions, with trainers having multiple units with different partner Pokemon, Signa suits designed after their partner Pokemon, and outfits tied to seasonal promotions like New Year's and Christmas. Even the anime gets representation, with Ash Ketchum making an appearance as a summonable unit. As part of the game's regular updates, Masters was rebranded as Pokemon Masters EX in 2020. And while this is pretty standard for Nintendo renaming their games, they clearly didn't account for the nature of the internet. In a similar passion to the hashtag Ed Sheeran album party going viral for reading like Ed Sheer anal bum party, the hashtag Pokemon Master Sex was trending everywhere. Just like Pokemon Duel, Masters also comes with an actual story and some original characters. Set on the island of Paseo, you go through multiple story arcs. You take part in the Pokemon Masters League and stop Team Break from sabotaging the competition. You take on the villains of previous games all the way up to Generation 8 and stop them from using Hooper's power, and there's also a story arc connected to Legends Arceus. Pokemon Masters feels like a celebration of everything Pokemon and an opportunity to bring back characters who likely haven't seen the light of day in the past 10 years.
I gather you were meant to replace me? Well, that's not necessary anymore, so, you can go now.
Excuse me?
Honestly, I expected Masters to be a bare-bones gacha game with the sole intention of siphoning money from young, impressionable fans, and I couldn't have been more wrong. I'm hoping this is how Persona 5 X turns out when it finally releases worldwide. 7 out of 10. I'm actually going to keep playing this one. Pokemon Wave Hello was a collaboration between the Pokemon Company and Google, released just before Pokemon Sword and Shield in 2019. The app allowed players to interact with the Gala starters, Eevee, and Pikachu, thanks to the revolutionary Motion Sense feature, exclusive to the Google Pixel 4, available now from a retailer near you. Yeah, this was just a glorified tech demo for the Google Pixel 4. It was taken off the Google Play Store in 2022, but you can still play it by downloading the APK file. Why you'd want to is beyond me, but the option's there, I guess. Pokemon Smile is an app designed to get children to brush their teeth. The game times your brushing sessions, with breaks involving a mini-game of fending off plaque-infected Pokemon. When you're finally done brushing, you have a chance to catch a Pokemon. I'm not rating or recording this one because the game uses your camera, and I am not reinforcing the stereotype of British people having manky teeth just because mine are a little wonky. Originally revealed alongside Pokemon Smile and New Pokemon Snap as Pokemon Cafe Mix, Pokemon Cafe Remix is a game where you work in a cafe serving Pokemon and working alongside them. The gameplay has you drag your finger across the touchscreen to link icons of the same Pokemon and generate points. Each level has its own objectives, like reaching a score requirement and clearing a certain number of obstacles like sugar cubes, whipped cream, and nuts. Each Pokemon that you recruit has its own specialty, for example clearing certain obstacles, as well as a super move that you can use when your meter's full. When you recruit more staff and meet milestones, you're rewarded with expansions to the cafe. The designs of the Pokemon fit absolutely perfectly with the cafe theme. I would die for Sushi Chef Marshtomp. He is my son and he must be protected. When you log into the game, you get daily rewards to incentivize you to keep coming back. And after getting through those, you're met with...
That shit look like the battle pass.
Why does a game about a Pokemon cafe have a fucking battle pass? And these prices are ludicrous. Who looks at the Eevee Evolution Pack for $18.99 and thinks it's a good way to spend your money?
Okay, $19 Fortnite card. Who wants it?
Cafe Remix is a 3 out of 10. The mindless gameplay makes it feel like Pokemon Shuffle has been dumbed down in the worst possible ways. It is hands down the most obvious cash grab that banks on the fact that fans will pay for battle passes because of the designs and aesthetic of the Pokemon. This is only slightly higher than Quest because the gameplay feels slightly more involved and the art style doesn't make me wish I didn't have eyes. It's pretty obvious that in the age of the Nintendo Switch, Pokemon spin-off games have fallen off. How can you even begin to compare the likes of Pokemon Ranger, Conquest and the old Mystery Dungeon games with shit like Pokemon Quest and Detective Pikachu Returns?
The name's Pikachu, and I'm what you might call a great detective.
The only way for me to solve this crisis is to be Superman 4, The Quest for Peace.
Oh, that's why they call it that.
And the reveal of Pokemon Unite will always stick with me as one of the biggest blunders by the Pokemon Company when it comes to hyping up a game. Back in June 2020, there was a Pokemon Presents containing information about the upcoming Isle of Armor DLC for Pokemon Sword and Shield, and reveal trailers for Pokemon Smile, Cafe Mix, and New Pokemon Snap. But before the end of the presentation, Ishihara said that the following week there would be another presentation focused entirely on one project that had been in the works for a while. This was back before my hopes and dreams died a horrible death. So obviously this tease had Pokemon fans going feral at the prospect of Generation 4 remakes. And what we got instead was a 5-minute introduction to Pokemon Unite, a free-to-play MOBA full of microtransactions. The response from fans was passionate. Personally, I would have swapped the placement of New Snap and Unite. Having an entire presentation focused on Snap was something fans have been asking about for years. Nevertheless, Pokemon Unite came out and it received a decent amount of backlash at the beginning, with people complaining about the potential pay-to-win mechanics and the fact that the game was developed by Tencent, a developer notorious for their shitty practices like completely ripping off other games, an insane amount of microtransactions and poor data security. But enough about the game's history. What's Pokemon Unite actually like? In Pokemon Unite, you and your teammates have to defeat other Pokemon to get orbs, which can be used to score points in the opposing team's goals. As you battle, your Pokemon can level up, learn new moves, and evolve. After the game's initial release in 2021, its roster has gotten pretty diverse, including the likes of Trevenant, Phalanx, Miraidon, and of course, him. You can equip items like muscle bands and potions to your Pokemon to increase your stats or heal you mid-game. These items can be upgraded using in-game currency, which you can spend ages grinding for or by using a parent's credit card. While these aren't locked behind a paywall, the amount of time you have to spend to earn currency is more than likely intended to incentivize you to spend money. Towards the end of a match, a legendary Pokemon like Zapdos or Rayquaza will appear in the middle of the map. Whichever team defeats them gets a buff that doubles all the points they score until the end of the match. This, in my experience, always decides the end of the match. Whoever gets the final boost wins the game. It makes playing the start of the game feel kind of pointless even if you've beaten Rotom or Dreadnought. This might just be a thing with MOBAs, I don't know. Unite is the first and potentially last one I'll ever play. Despite its flaws, Unite can be a fun time waster on your phone or Switch. And while I definitely prefer playing on Switch, the game runs pretty flawlessly on mobile too. Since the death of loot boxes and the advent of games making you pay for skins, I've held off on paying a ridiculous amount for an in-app cosmetic. But I do have to admit, distinguished gentleman Slowbro has been speaking to me like the Green Goblin mask.
Coward. We have a new world to conquer.
6 out of 10, it has its issues, but I can still have a lot of fun with it. Pokemon Sleep is a game about sleeping. Sleep used to be a meme within the community because it got revealed in a Pokemon Presents and then we didn't hear anything about it for nearly 4 years. The app is designed to track your sleep by placing your phone or the 40 quid hockey puck they call the Pokemon Go++ on your mattress while you sleep. It uses the microphone and accelerometer to measure the quality and length of your sleep. In my experience, my sleep record was wildly inconsistent as it picked up the noise from my next door neighbours screaming at each other and the motion of my cat jumping on the bed in the middle of the night. Depending on how deep the app thinks your sleep was, it assigns you a sleep type of either dozing, snoozing or slumbering. Based on your sleep type, Pokemon will gather around your Snorlax in a variety of positions. These Pokemon are then recorded in your sleep style decks, so you need to get different types of sleep to fill up your dex entries. You can trade the points you get based on your sleep quality for items to feed Snorlax, cook meals for it, or feed the Pokemon that sleep around it. But if you don't want to earn points by doing literally the easiest thing known to man, you could always pay for the premium sleep pass. What a steal! You can get the 6-month plan for just $39.99. On top of the premium sleep pass, you can also buy diamonds to spend on new Pokemon for your sleep style decks and biscuits to feed them. You can literally buy a main series Pokemon game for the Switch for less than 3,100 gems. If you have spent actual money on Pokemon Sleep, I am genuinely upset that in a democracy your vote counts just as much as mine does. I think Pokemon Sleep is an interesting concept and a fun way to try and get people to stick to a sleep schedule, but I'm way too worried about knocking my phone off my bed to use it outside of this video. I refuse to pay for the Pokemon Go++, which is a fucking stupid name by the way, and the sheer amount of microtransactions in something that was meant to be a sleep tracking app frankly disgusts me. 3 out of 10. So it turns out that Pokemon games on mobile are quite the mixed bag. They made an app that revolutionized mobile gaming forever and bridged the gap between hardcore superfan and people who contribute to society, and they've also made a variety of mindless shovelware titles that focus on trying to get you to spend your hard-earned money.
You see this? I got this from this. Now, hear me out. Some people might say this is a bit unethical, but you know what I say to those people? You're poor. Ain't nothing unethical about this stack of cash.
Honestly, I'd recommend Pokemon Go, Masters, Shuffle, and maybe Unite if you're bored. I do stand by the point that Pokemon Masters could probably be brought to the Nintendo Switch. If other gacha games like Genshin Impact can make it on the PS5, I don't see an issue with Masters. And I'm praying that they do something with the storyline and characters of Pokemon Duel. I really don't want to see them ending up as lost media. I've had fun looking at Pokemon's mobile gaming experiences from across the years, but I do think it's time to get back to using my phone for what it was originally designed for.